Today we have a Hall of Fame level scammer, Vegas Dave. Some of y'all may remember him. I've made a few different videos about him, but he's back. He just lost the judgment in court. He might be going bankrupt. In case y'all need a little refresher on him, we're going to go to the GOAT Steve Stevens to give us a little insight into who Vegas Dave is.
Because there's something going on with this clown, Vegas Dave, who claims to be a world-class sports consultant, who is an absolute fraud, robs people and bankrupts them, puts them in the poorhouse, and knows absolutely nothing about sports. And it's time for me to expose you, you little 4'10", purse-wearing bitch who lives with your parents.
Which he does. But I will take it from here, Steve. We're going to be making a video about this man, Vegas Dave, today. So let's see how much money he makes.
To the critics, you know, so many people are writing online about me and all the characters on the show are saying there's no way it's impossible to hit 75 or above % on games.
Yeah, that's actually true. What I've been told from someone is that what Dave would do is this system that would, he would make it appear like he's winning all these games, but really he'd just be doing martingale, which is where you double your bets. Not an effective strategy.
Let me ask you this. How in the world can I continually make $1 million a month?
$1 million a month. Some of you just don't quite understand how many degenerates are out there that are willing to pay for sports picks from a con man. $1 million a month, I actually believe him. And here's why. So in this video, it was, I think, Showtime or one of the HBO or some, they had a show that highlighted Vegas Dave. And so in this episode, you can see it on his channel, Vegas Dave was filming behind the scenes. So like, hey, the episode just went live. He wanted to show how much money was coming in, how many people were paying for his picks. So here's that clip.
Let me hit 200,000. 351,000, dude. 351,000, dude. Holy shit.
That's in one day, by the way. 350 grand. So when these guys say they make money, please understand that they are making money with the picks, not by actually betting, and it is a substantial amount of money. Now, where he invested that money is the subject of today's video. It was really funny driving around Vegas a few years ago because you'd see all these sports pick fraudsters with their billboards up, running hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in advertising to convince you, Mr. Tourist, to come to town and pay them for their sports pick because they had special knowledge. The first lawsuit we're going to go through today is another one of the sports bettors, Bet with AJ. You may have heard of him. A few years ago, he was a little bit more relevant than he is today. Vegas Dave sued him back in 2018. One of the allegations is that Vegas Dave knew that AJ was a client of Dave's and had been for a duration of 3 years. And upon information of belief, defendant, Bet with AJ, is also engaged in the same business of providing online sports handicapping services to online users for a profit. Now, the profit part is not accurate. It was selling sports picks. But what was interesting about this case is that Vegas Dave alleged that he began to suspect that AJ was engaged in purchasing plaintiff's picks for the purpose of reselling them. So AJ was allegedly being a customer for Vegas Dave. It was a part of his email scheme, I think, was a member of his emails. And so he would receive the emails and then just send out the same picks to his audience. So upon information and belief, after a 2-year investigation, I don't know why he didn't try and shut it down after a month or two, but Vegas Dave found out that AJ was purchasing plaintiff's handicap picks and then will immediately sell them to his own consumers. Dave then realized that AJ was actually even copying the emails and sending it out to his consumers. Dave also alleges that AJ was contacting Dave's clients directly with the intent of trying to convert them to being his customers. Dave came to the conclusion that AJ, using his account at BetWithAJ, was selling his products as his own. He was selling the picks as his own. Basically, hey, I've got all the expertise. I'm going to tell you how to win at sports betting. And he was just using Vegas Dave's picks, which in a weird way is kind of like scamming on scamming. Like you're taking someone else's picks, so you're stealing from someone who isn't a profitable sports bettor. Pretty funny. And so Vegas Dave ended up having a process for seeking a temporary restraining order against him, said no more. And since then, Bet with AJ isn't nearly as relevant as he was. Around that same time, Vegas Dave was making money selling picks. He started to invest in Cabo, Mexico. He invested in 3 different luxury rental vacation spots that are, I have to admit, pretty nice. Well done, Dave. He did a really good job designing them and getting them up and running. Apparently, they make a lot of money, and they are very expensive. I don't know exactly what he paid, but I imagine collectively they're somewhere around $12 to $15 million. And based on the website, they seem to attract a very, very wealthy clientele. Dave hires Cabo Platinum. This is the major issue he has in Cabo, Mexico right now, is this company right here. Vegas Dave is claiming that they were defrauding him, but they've recently won a judgment against them. And so this looks like a property management company. They're probably pretty well established in the area. If you go through their website, it looks like they offer some premium services, yacht rentals, private jet rentals, and it looks like they have access, meaning they are the property managers of very luxurious properties, and they offer properties and an experience for wealthy clientele. In April 2024, Dave cut off the relationship with Cabo Platinum because a couple weeks later, in May 2024, he actually sued them and the two people running the company. Now, in the lawsuit, he claims that he first met them many years ago. In 2011, 2012, Dave was introduced to the defendants when he went on a trip to Los Cabos and met them, and I guess had a good enough experience such that a few years later in 2016, he purchased his first property via Vegas Dave. One big property with the ability to accommodate 22 guests. It's a luxury property. And around that same time, a property management agreement was executed. A big issue with this complaint, and what Vegas Dave seems to have an issue with the Cabo Platinum company, is that there was a monthly earnings report that was supposed to be sent with him. This is basically every month he's going to receive the income, expenses, what needed to be fixed. And he was claiming that there was problems there. He wasn't receiving it every month. Now, it was a little bit confusing because why would you continue the relationship if you weren't receiving this monthly earnings report? But that's what he's claiming. Also, Vegas Dave, not exactly the most trustworthy source here. And then in 2018, he purchased 2 plots of land adjacent to Via Vegas Dave. One, to build a new home. This is when you get to Via Vegas Dave 2, another property that would serve a lot of guests. This Cabo Platinum company also offered luxurious design, and so one of the first charges towards Vegas Dave for the second property totaled a little over $130,000 and a little bit of a fee for oversight. And then Vegas Dave received a proposal for furniture and fixtures for almost $1 million. Now, Vegas Dave claims that he did not approve the vast majority of the items contained in the proposal. Now, what's confusing is since then he's been running these properties and they've been generating revenue, so it doesn't seem like there was much of an issue, and he kept the relationship going until 2024. So I don't understand between 2020 and 2024 why there was clearly an issue on his part, why he's including it in this complaint. But then for the 4 years following, why he kept the relationship going. Vegas Dave also claims that he paid the design fee for the second property and provided payments for carpentry and stonework, but he claims that the contractors that did the work have not been paid. Here, Vegas Dave claims that he has not received any of the invoices associated with the fees, services, and items listed on the monthly earnings statement. He claimed that, hey, you've never sent me any of the invoices. I don't know where my money's going. He also claims that in 2019, he hired the defendants to remodel the home that he purchased for his parents, located here in Spanish Hills area in Las Vegas. He claims that the budget had his maximum renovation budget was $350,000. And I guess everyone signed. But the problem was that despite this maximum budget, the project took approximately 17 months to complete and cost over $1.3 million. Now, what I find confusing about this is that, so you have this budget and then it keeps going on and on. It wasn't like they just took the credit card and just goes, oh, whoops, we spent $1.3 million. I don't know where the money went. You're sending them money throughout the whole process. He didn't just give them $1.3 million up front. He probably gave them a little bit. And as they completed work, you give them a little more. And so I don't know why this was now all of a sudden an issue. Why did he bring it up now? This is 5 years after the fact. He's going, well, wait a second, they spent way more on this remodel in Las Vegas, and now I'm just bringing up this issue. During the course of the remodel, the defendants did not send Dave copies of any additional proposals, invoices, or receipts for items that were purchased for the property. This doesn't make any sense. So this whole time we're led to believe that Vegas Dave was just in the dark. He just had his eyes closed, and they just took his credit card, and they just spent, and where are you spending the money? I don't even know. Doesn't make any sense. 4 years later, November 2023, with the help of one of the defendants, he bought the third Via Vegas Dave property, and somehow we're led to believe that he was having issues at his property, but he trusted them enough to buy another property in Cabo. None of this is adding up. The defendants were managing this third property, and they told Dave, hey, this property is making $100,000 per month in rent from guests, and I assure you that this is a good investment because we're managing it. We manage the property already. We know the prior owners. So based on this information, Vegas Dave bought the property, but he's claiming no inspection was completed prior to the sale, and numerous repairs were needed to ensure the property was rentable for guests, which is a little confusing because if it was already making $100,000 a month, then I'm assuming the property was plenty fine the way it was. But he's also saying that, oh, the defendants promised to make numerous repairs to the property after closing. That's on you, buyer. That's on you to hire an inspector and make sure that what you're buying is legitimate and doesn't need repairs, or at the very least, maybe you throw in when you buy, you say, hey, these are the little repairs that need to be completed before I purchase. That's on you, Dave. Once again, Dave says he's not received any of the invoices associated with the fees, service, and items listed, yet he kept sending them money. Since 2020, Plaintiff and Vegas Dave Consulting have wired at least $1.2 million. Please take note of the dates. These are substantial wire amounts, $120,000 all the way up to $514,000. So he was sending multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars all the way up to $1.2 million over these 3.5 years. Apparently this whole time he was having problems. He wasn't getting invoices. He wasn't getting monthly statements. He didn't know where the money was going. He was upset with the longevity of the renovations in his Las Vegas house, yet he kept sending significant amounts of money because he obviously trusted them. Something's not adding up here. April 2024 rolls around and Via Vegas Dave 2 is still under construction. There were some valid safety concerns about the elevator. I think Vegas Dave was getting a little upset. He was wanting the property to be done. And so the defendant said, hey, we need to possibly move some guests to Via Vegas Dave 3 because we got them coming into town. And this part's really funny. So one of the defendants further stated that plaintiff's actions could ruin your business as well as ours. Already, after simply Googling your name, half the websites are about you being a scammer. This is truly sad. So Vegas Dave had to write this in his complaint that they were realizing, once they started Googling Vegas Dave's name, they realized, oh man, our client's a scammer. And even better, this is the best part. So this paragraph 70, defendants began contacting guests that booked reservations at plaintiff's properties. Basically, the property management company began contacting the guests saying, we're having issues. Vegas Dave is not allowing you to stay at the property. And so they advised the guests that plaintiff, Vegas Dave, is a scammer and would not honor their reservations. Defendant Danette also advised plaintiff that a reservation for a mutual guest in June does not feel her reservation is going to be honored by Vegas Dave after doing a Google search and will not be held at risk of standing in the street on her arrival day. So basically the guests realized, like, they looked up the owner and realized, oh snap, this is Vegas Dave. They saw he was a scammer. Now granted, in my kind of like understanding about this, he wasn't scamming with the house, but just to look him up and realize he was a scammer, they didn't want to stay at his properties. On the very next day, Cabo Platinum filed a lawsuit against Vegas Dave Wancha, in Clark County, Nevada. What they're mostly alleging here is that Vegas Dave stopped giving access to the properties. When he terminated the agreement, Cabo Platinum had received a lot of money from the guests. They had booked it, they received the money up front, and they had sent the money to Vegas Dave because he's the owner. And so now the guests are coming to town, and Vegas Dave cut off access to his properties. He didn't want to give them access anymore. So now the guests are coming into town. Cabo Platinum is on the hook for these guests having a good experience. And then when they come to town, they don't have access to a property. And so Cabo Platinum was saying that they had to then go find another property. Well, these are super unique experiences. It's not like a Comfort Inn where you could just send them to a local hotel and it's all kind of the same. No, these are very unique experiences. People are paying $3,000, $5,000, maybe $10,000 a night. This is a significant expense for people. And so Cabo Platinum is alleging that they had to pay out of pocket to make sure that these guests were taken care of because they didn't want their reputation to go to shit. Let's take a quick break from all that boring litigation and check out this image. Who is that lovely young lady and that man? That, my friends, is D Lucky. You may remember him from Instagram. He is an expert at slots. Apparently, people pay him every day to spend 15 minutes going and playing slots, hoping to hit jackpot. You probably noticed the thumbs up, and I love this guy's image down here. He's like, oh my God, how much is that guy paying for her? Well, if you recognize this lady right here, this is Holly. This actually was Vegas Dave's girlfriend for a minute. So you see Vegas Dave down here? That's because Vegas Dave and D Lucky were friends. But we have a little issue. D Lucky wanted to get in the sports betting space. He started selling picks as well. Now, of course, he is an absolute idiot. He knows nothing about winning sports betting. I even found it interesting at the bottom of the website. D Lucky is not a handicapper. These are his lucky plays of the day. So he's getting in the sports betting industry, right? Here's his picks. You can pay to lose money. Well, what did I just find? April 29th, 2025, Vegas Dave sued David Pham, Play Media LLC, and D Lucky Slots LLC. What is this lawsuit all about? Around 2021, Pham handled 90% of Vegas Dave's company expenses. These two, I think, had a really good relationship a few years ago. They look really friendly right there, don't they? So Vegas Dave was paying him for billboards and social media campaigns. Billboards alone allegedly cost around $200,000. Gives you an idea of what these guys are willing to pay, because when they're making multiples of that on the back end, they're easily able to justify $200,000 a month in billboards. And when you realize how many degenerates are out there willing to spend money on sports betting picks, $350,000 a day, it makes total sense. But what's great is that defendants pocketed the $100,000 overage. He's alleging he was spending $200,000 and only $100,000 were going to the billboards. So somehow a scammer was scamming a scammer. Hilarious to me. Absolutely hilarious. Dave found out about some server issues, which forced him to transfer an additional $280,000. These servers were for the websites, but he believes it went directly into D. Lucky's pockets. And there was an employee making 20 grand a month, this Roman guy, but he believes a portion of this money went directly into D. Lucky's coffers. He also took an additional $10,000 per month for alleged web developing services. Dave kept asking for, who's this developer? Can I meet him? I'm paying 10 grand a month. He found out that all the money paid to them since 2019 was simply taken by the defendants. There was no web developer. In 2021 alone, it is estimated that $1.2 million or more was taken for business expenses that never actually existed. What a scheme! Vegas Dave was getting taken advantage of. $1.2 million. D. Lucky Slots may be a new entrant into the Hall of Fame of scamming. Dave believes that $400,000 in funds that were supposed to be used for a social media campaign were stolen by D. Lucky Slots. So he confronted D. Lucky with the information, and he was then blocked and ceased all communication, began deleting all messages between the parties. But Dave kept the messages, which led to this lawsuit. The best part is that they had a business relationship for Metaverse Land, cryptocurrency-related digital real estate, for a total of around $210,000. But it sounds like D. Lucky never handed it over. I don't know how you hand over digital land, but poor Vegas Dave, he contributed funds and reaped none of the benefits of the investment. Now, between me and you, I think it's down around 99%. So how much money has this cost Vegas Dave? He's alleging $10 million over the course of the business relationship. That's a lot of money, Dave. D. Lucky, if you took $10 million, you deserve Scammer of the Year award.
You know what's not red? I'm gonna put my glasses on and tell you. NFTs, baby. Up again.
Up again, baby. He was pitching NFTs at the absolute peak. So if you were buying at this time when he was promoting them, you're down 99%. He's so rich. I mean, think about this. When he bought NFTs, end of 2021 at the absolute peak, he said his $5 million investment is now worth over $200 million in less than 3 weeks. So a simple 40x. I mean, totally realistic, right? Buying virtual land. Here's another post from Vegas Dave about Sandbox in the metaverse. Only 100,000 buyers. Why aren't you getting in? Hilarious to see this now about his virtual portfolio and how much money he's lost since then. Vegas Dave was having a little tough time when he was the defendant in the case with Cabo Platinum. He was losing. The courts were working against him, as we'll go over in just a minute. So he decides to sue Cabo Platinum a second time, July 1st, 2025, essentially alleging the same stuff. I don't understand the strategy because he already filed one complaint. Why file a second one? However, he must have thought that maybe filing a second lawsuit with the same claims would lead to a better outcome. Then he went on social media trying to blast this company.
Issues with that company, right?
Yeah, Cabo Platinum, they were stealing from me. So, I trusted this company to manage my properties, and they were stealing from me. I thought they were stealing from me the last couple of years, but they've been stealing from me from day one since 2016. Like, all this could be settled last year. It could be settled tomorrow. They just provide the bank statements and the receipts, but they don't want to because it's pure fraud.
He's claiming since 2016. How in the world can you get scammed for 8 years? I don't understand it. He was doing business with them in many different areas, design and property management and running his properties. And what, you're telling me that over the many years of them running your properties, you just weren't getting paid, weren't seeing any of the invoices, weren't seeing any of the receipts? Then you just decide to file a lawsuit around the same time that they sued you and eventually won. Not really adding up.
Every month they would send me invoices and I would say, where's the receipts? Where's the information? And they'd be like, oh, I'll give it to you later. Or I'm sick. They would say they're sick with cancer, or they would make up excuses of why not to give it to me. But when that $3 million was taken, I had to tighten up the belt. I was like, hey, listen, I want everything you've been promising me. Our contract states receipts, financial documents monthly. I want everything by the state or we're parting ways. They would never give it to me. Instead, they try to break in my house with a restraining order on them.
Jeez.
And then they try to flip it on me saying like they're the victims and that they're my employees and I never paid them. Just scams, man.
Really fascinating. I read all the documents. I don't remember him seeing or showing any proof of $3 million going missing. That's kind of a random number. He seems to have had a little issue with them because he then went to the Gringo Gazette, which if you don't speak Spanish, understand that this means little purse man in English. And so he went a paid advertisement in the Gringo Gazette. $6 million fraud. I won't force you to read all this, but if you want to, he basically shares the story. Well, he was going publicly on podcasts, on his posts. I don't have them here, but if you go on his Instagram, you'll see there were some posts about Cabo Platinum being frauds and crooks and stealing money, paying, paid advertisement, paying to be in a newspaper. This is business disparagement. This is claiming that Cabo Platinum was scamming. This is tarnishing their reputation. So what will they do in retaliation? Well, my friends, this leads us to a judgment. Just a month ago, July 17th, 2025, the courts have rendered a judgment against Vegas Dave. And this, my friends, is the most fascinating reading of all. On May 14th, Cabo Platinum filed its first motion for preliminary injunction, basically saying, Dave, stop this. This is hurting our business. Our reputation's at stake. The court granted their motion, and they showed a few reservations here for each property that the courts basically said, Dave, you have to allow these guests. They've already paid. We've received the money. You've received the money. Apparently, they've seen in the court documents, they were able to show that Vegas Dave had received the booking money. You need to open up your property for these guests on these dates. Wancha never complied with the first injunction. What you'll find when reading this is that he didn't comply with anything. He's this little pest. He just wanted to, he's the victim everywhere. He's a victim on all the podcasts. He's a victim in the newspaper article that he paid for, but yet somehow he never complied with any of the injunctions. Dave attempted to stay, dissolve, or clarify the first injunction, but never allowed access to his properties for the reservations this court ordered him to accommodate. The court said, dude, you have to let the guests come to stay at your property. And he was like, no, we'll try to litigate this. We'll try to stay the motion, or we need some clarification on what this means. So Cabo Platinum ultimately filed 2 motions for sanctions against Dave because he's not acting in good faith. The court issued a minute order granting both of those motions for sanctions, and they sanctioned him $5,000 for each motion. And they awarded fees and costs for those motions. Even better is a month later, after misappropriating Cabo Platinum's trade secret confidential homeowners list, Dave began using the list to email their homeowners, guests, and industry contacts a series of highly disparaging emails accusing them of fraud, embezzlement, failure to maintain proper financial records and accounting, theft, and a host of other serious and damaging accusations. Basically, he got a list of their clients and was sending them emails like, don't do business with these guys. They're fraudsters. They're scammers. Probably very similar to what he was doing in the podcast, to a list he shouldn't have had access to. Cabo Platinum then immediately files a second motion for injunction. The court heard and granted both motions a month later. Then they had to file an amended complaint. Then a couple weeks later, the court entered an order finding Wancha had misappropriated Cabo Platinum's trade secret confidential homeowners list and told Dave, dude, stop possessing and using this information contained in the confidential list to contact their homeowners. Even worse is that his counsel agreed that Vegas Dave was not complying with the first injunction despite their advice. So then later that year, Wancha filed a notice of compliance saying that he had destroyed the misappropriated confidential homeowners list. Okay, guys, I've destroyed it. I was in the wrong. This notice of compliance was false because Dave subsequently violated the second injunction, sending more emails using their confidential homeowners list on December 25th and February 5th. This is now months later. He said, guys, I destroyed the list. No, he didn't. He kept sending emails to the list, which contained similar false and disparaging accusations against them and their principals. So in response, Cabo Platinum had to file a 4th motion for sanctions, again seeking a default judgment and a prove-up hearing to establish its damages. The court found Dave had violated the second injunction, just like the first one. They granted the 4th motion for sanctions and ruled that Cabo Platinum could establish its damages at a prove-up hearing. During this hearing in June of 2025, Cabo Platinum provided evidence through exhibits admitted into evidence by the stipulation of the parties on the record, as well as the testimony of one of their principals and expert witness, James Olin. So what Cabo Platinum did, they hired what's called an expert witness. We've had to deal with this in my case. Basically, you go to a third party, an expert on the industry. They wanted to go to him because they needed an outside party to prove how much they were damaged. So in civil lawsuits, you have what are called damages. Oftentimes, they're not that clear. Sometimes if you lost your job because of someone defaming you or whatever, you can show a very clear loss of income. That's pretty easy to evaluate. However, with a business, how do you show someone didn't sign up for your booking? You wouldn't know their behavior. You wouldn't be able to track that. And so you want to hire an expert that can go into your business and look at the income and expenses and before the disparaging comments were made and after. And he can evaluate using his expertise, industry expertise. He can evaluate how much net income you can reasonably assume was from the disparaging comments. This expert, as you'll find throughout this complaint or throughout the judgment, the expert found that there was actually a pretty clear indication of lost income after the disparaging comments were made, and a lot of enterprise value was lost, which we'll find out the amount in just a minute. The hearing included evidence supporting the claims in Cabo Platinum's first amended complaint and the monetary damages suffered by them. Also, regarding their rental contract claims, the court found that there was a rental contract. They adequately brokered the properties, they managed the properties well, and they sent money. They did everything according to the contract, and they didn't do anything wrong. Cabo Platinum also provided evidence that Dave contacted guests directly and told them to cancel their reservations with Cabo Platinum, demand a refund, and rent his properties directly from them. Airbnb deals with this as well. And so let's say you have a guest come and stay at your Airbnb and you let them know, hey, at the end of their stay, next time you come to town, here's my email, here's my number, contact me directly, because these platforms and property management companies, they'll take a cut. I think this one was 20%. So if someone's spending $10,000 a night on a stay, well, if you go around the property management company, you're going to save a lot of money. Obviously, highly unethical, and according to the contract, would you be breaking the contract? Not cool. And that's what that's what they're alleging Vegas Dave was doing. Even worse is that Dave's conduct forced Cabo Platinum to refund money to several guests because Dave failed to return the funds that Cabo Platinum had paid him. Basically, what happened is these guests pay ahead of time. It's a substantial amount of money. These are a big reservations. And so they would pay 50% up front, and then a few days or a week or however long before the guest arrived, they had to pay in full. The property management company, Cabo Platinum, would receive the money in full, and then they'd send that money to Dave after taking their cut. Well, the problem is that they sent the money to Dave, substantial amount of money, tens of thousands of dollars. Dave took the money, and then he didn't allow access for the guests. So the guests are coming to town, and then Cabo Platinum is going, well, wait a second, we don't have access to the property, and we don't have that money anymore. We already sent it to Dave. And so when the guests come to town, they're expecting they don't know who Dave is. They're expecting Cabo Platinum to give them and provide them the experience that they paid for. So now Cabo Platinum's on the hook. Their reputation's on the hook as well. They're established business in the area, clearly have a professional looking website. So these guests are coming from out of the country. They're flying in. And so Cabo Platinum at last minute now has to rush to find a similar experience. Well, guess what they have to do? They have to pay for it because the guest has already sent the money. And so Dave has the money. Cabo Platinum's out the money. They're having to last minute book a similar experience for these guests. So they're out the money. That is damages. They were damaged tens of thousands of dollars and actually significantly more. And regarding Cabo Platinum's design contract claims, the evidence shows that Cabo Platinum had an agreement with Dave to provide goods and services for his properties, the interior design, assistance with remodeling and construction projects. At the time this dispute began, Dave, listen to this, Dave owed Cabo Platinum money for these goods and services not been paid. So Dave is going on podcast saying he's a victim. They stole so much money. In his lawsuits, he's alleging that he is the victim. But yet the evidence seems to show that Dave is the one owing the money for the services. Dave improperly acquired the confidential homeowners list without Cabo Platinum's permission. Vegas Dave, bad boy. He then used the list to disparage Cabo Platinum in communications. That's not good, Dave. And the courts agree that these were false allegations on these posts in a campaign of emails reaching millions of followers that disrupted and harmed the business reputation of Cabo Platinum. And as I showed you in that newspaper post, he paid to publish multiple advertisements masquerading as articles in various news publications, including one publication specifically targeting the tourist market. You know that's damaging because I imagine that's where a lot of their customers come from. Olin, remember that expert witness, he testified that the damage Dave's actions caused Cabo Platinum was over $1.5 million in loss of net operating income and over $8 million in loss of enterprise value. Now, why the difference? Because $1.5 million is the loss of money today. But the business lost because that money goes into the value, that net operating income goes into the value of the business, lost $8.3 million of enterprise value, what the business is actually worth. Cabo Platinum presented substantial evidence that Dave caused almost $800,000 in damages. He failed to identify a fundamental defect in their damages calculations. So the design contract. Dave failed to identify a fundamental defect in Cabo Platinum's damages calculations for the design contract. Here's the final judgment. Let's figure out how much Dave owes. Almost $10 million here, $800,000, $751,000, $61,000, and almost $20,000 in punitive damages. When you add it all up, for all you math nerds out there, who's got the calculator? That's right, over $30 million, $30.2 million judgment. No matter how bad you have it, you don't have it as bad as Via Vegas Dave. $30 million owed to Cabo Platinum.
That's why for this case, it's principle. There's no mercy. I don't want their money. I want them to go to jail.
Well, Dave, he claims in another podcast that he doesn't want to put up with that lawsuit anymore. He received the judgment because he didn't want to fight it anymore. But yeah, in this podcast, he's saying it's principle. I want them to go to jail. They scammed me. Well, the courts seem to disagree. Some of the statements were that Vegas Dave actually owes the money, and Cabo Platinum upheld their end of the contract.
All right, guys, what's up? In Okinawa, Japan, look at this view. Insane. But this vacation in Japan on a one-way ticket made me realize I can't hang it up. I cannot retire, people.
He can't retire, or maybe he's judgment dodging. Could he be leaving the country? Could he be going to Japan to dodge that judgment? But he can't retire. Dave is back with his sports betting picks. He needs the money, bros. $30 million will make you go really gray. Dave is a very, very sad and lonely man. Now he's got $30 million in judgment against his name. He needs to generate some money. But we'll end with this. We got Steve Stevens, one final statement. What do you got to say about Dave, Steve?
But when it comes down to sports consulting and winning games for people, you're bankrupting motherfuckers and ruining their lives, and it's time for you to get exposed, little dick.
He also called him a little dick. See, Steve called me a little dick too, so we're in the same club there. Unfortunately, because Dave owes $30 million, I have a feeling he's coming back. He's coming back to the sports betting industry. He needs your money. Please do not give him any. Thanks so much for watching.